So a winter high pressure in late February 2019 provided the perfect opportunity for one of my favourite flights up to Kirkbride.
Ashcroft traffic, gyrocopter Golf Uniform India Romeo Oscar at the hold, preparing to enter line up runway 27. It's coming off. Hardly any wind today. Could have used any runway, so I'm using the longest, the best drained, 27. Avoid the molehill, so taxi on a little bit. So we are going transponder onto Alpha Charlie Sierra, brake to flight, all looks good, temperatures and pressures are fine, holding 2000 RPM. Parking brake off, fuel tank engaged, straight forward. Adding a little bit of power because as soon as the rotor starts moving, the engine struggles a little, holding 2000 till the rotor's caught up. About there, you can see the rotor RPM suddenly shoots up to about 150. Adding power gently. There we have 3000 motor RPM, which equates to 200 rotor RPM. That's good to go. Ashcroft traffic, Golf Romeo Oscar rolling 27. Ashcroft. Round effect is 60. Climb away. 60, stick, trim forward. (300 feet above ground level, powering back. Just going to continue my climb beyond the farm. Turn before the cows. So this time of the morning we are 10:13. Visibility is not fantastic. It is forecast to improve today, but there were also forecasts down to 8k at times. So it's one of those days where I simply don't know what it's going to be like over the fells.
Just entering the Forest of Bowland, and the building down to our left on the banks of the river is the inn at Whitewell. You can see from the smoke off to our right that it's hardly being dispersed. There was very little wind. I was on a basic service with RAF Water, and I thought it was a good idea to ask them if they were aware of any fast jet traffic that might affect my route.
Warden, Golf Romeo Oscar request. My planned route is going to take me low level through the fells, Windermere, Ambleside, Thirlmere, Derwent Water, Bassenthwaite. Are you aware of any fast jet traffic that might be flying the same route low level?
I've only just plugged in, but I'll check my colleague. There's been much low level stuff this morning.
Thank you.
Golf Romeo Oscar, I've just spoken to my colleague. He says there's been very little showing on radar as far as fast jet activity in the lakes today. However, there is no timed activity at Appleby.
Thank you, that's copied. I guess the low visibility might be keeping them on the ground. Thank you. Golf Romeo Oscar. Just turn to Windermere. I just can't imagine that the fast jets will be taking this route today. I mean, I've got plenty of time at my ground speed of 63, but you wouldn't want to be down here at 300, 350 knots.
Winter high pressure gives very light winds, as you can see from the glass smooth surface of Windermere, but the downside is you can get very poor visibility. This is Loughrig Fell, just to the south of Rydal Water.
It can be very turbulent flying over this, but it's not today because there's very little wind.
I had originally planned to follow the A591 up towards Thirlmere, but at this point I decided instead to go behind the Langdale Pikes.
So that's our route up towards Thirlmere. Helvellyn, just to the right hand side of the road, and it looks very claggy there. I mean, passable, but this does look the better route, and you can see the Langdale Pikes right in front of us.
So we have Rydal Water just behind to our right, Grasmere just ahead off to the right, and over to the left we have the small Loughrick Tarn, and then just beyond that Elter Water. We're about to begin the climb up Lee Crag towards Grasmere Common.
There's the Great Langdale Valley. Got escape routes to the left and right. So I could fly up the valley and then climb up behind the Langdale Pikes, but as I've already got this altitude, I'm just going to fly behind them like this. I'm just following the ridge line up. Look how still it is, everything is so beautifully reflective.
Eastdale Tarn to our right, and then Stickle Tarn just behind Pavey Ark ahead to the left.
We're getting some orographic lift here, even though there's not it's hardly any wind. That is pretty special though, isn't it? And it is actually clearing. So there are no structures and I can't see any walkers. So altitude wise, 500 feet from any structure or person or vessel. I climbed up the Langdale Pikes with the family just over a year ago. First time I've ever done it. Fantastic. Beautifully flat top here. You just see the town of Keswick in the murk. But before we go over there, we're going to fly around here for a bit. So we are behind the Langdale Pikes.
This is Sergeant Man and High Rays on the very flat Grasmere Common.
Look at that. How magnificent is that?
We're now heading north along Greenup Edge towards Ulscarf. Just waving at some walkers, first ones I'd seen on the entire flight. Whitburn Fells off to the right, feeding into Thirlmere, and then behind that Helvellyn. Over to the left, beyond Borrowdale, you can see the high Buttermere Fells.
I'm going to follow the big grassy bank. Borrowdale is down there. Oh, there are some walkers over there.
Flying along the top of Ulscarf here, approaching High Saddle. This was actually some of the best visibility that I had experienced on the entire trip. So I've seen the fells looking even more immaculate when I've had crystal clear visibility, or alternatively when I've flown up during the winter and they've been covered in snow, but this was still not bad. Passed over High Saddle, gradually descending as we approach Blee Tarn straight ahead, and then the Whatandleth Fell. This is Bleetarn. Dale Head, descending down into Borrowdale off to the left hand side, the start of the Buttermere Fells, and then beyond that, Grasmere. I fell off whilst walking up there a few years back, broke my ankle. Far safer in a gyrocopter. Descending now, following Bleetarn Gill, down from Watundleth Fell towards Watundleth Tarn, and then eventually in towards the northeastern part of Borrowdale and Derwent Water beyond. This is Watundleth Tarn.
23 miles. To run. 18 minutes. Unless I decide to play some more, which is a distinct possibility. We're in a cruise descent now, just blowing a little bit of altitude as we come down towards Derwent Water. Valley off to our right.
Got from Ilium is the final span, runway 28.
That bells, Derwent Water, pretty special.
So now we can see Derwent Water straight ahead, Ashness Fell off to the right, and then on the western bank of Derwent Water to our left, as we're looking at now, the unique shape of Cat Bells. We arrive at Derwent Water, and if you look round back towards the left, you can see right up Borrowdale.
Now there's Cat Bells over to the left at about the 10 o'clock position. That's a lovely walk. And this is Derwent Water, town of Keswick at the head of the lake, and Skiddaw beyond. Do I want to fly across the lake? Partly I do, because I'd like to go and see Cat Bells. It's enough altitude, I think, to make the short in the event of an engine out.
Something I always consider when crossing water in the gyrocopter, what would happen if the engine were to quit. I'm at 1700 feet here, so easily be able to make either shoreline. A nice view of the ridgeline of Cat Bells. Off to the north, across the islands and the tip of Derwent Water, you can see Keswick and then the mountain of Skiddaw behind.
So this is Bassenthwaite Lake. Kirkbride Radio, good morning. Gyrocopter Golf Uniform India Romeo Oscar inbound 5 miles to the south. Understand runway 28 and 1022 QFE will join overhead. There could be other people in the murk and I just can't see them. Hence the overhead. Hello Kirkbride.
Zulu Bravo, final for 28.
Golf Romeo Oscar overhead, descending dead side, 28 left hand.
I've got a bit of a soft spot for Kirkbride. I did my gyrocopter training up here. It's a fantastic facility in a beautiful part of the world. It was surprisingly and unusually busy today. I did wonder if perhaps there was a flying going on, but it turns out it was a Wednesday, and that's the only day of the week that the hotel just on the airfield was open, so a lot of people were flying up to get lunch. So we're in the overhead, descending on the dead side, and it is so easy to do this in a gyrocopter. As you can see, we're descending, hardly crossing the ground, so I can keep very tight in to the runway, aiming to cross the upwind end at around 1,000 feet circuit height.
Golf Romeo Oscar, downwind, left hand 28. Golf Romeo Oscar, turning final 28.
Very little wind today, and Kirkbride has a very long runway, certainly very long in gyrocopter terms, 1,280 metres, and the exit is right at the far end. So picking the IDP, the initial descent point, always fairly challenging. And as you'll see on this approach, I end up doing a hovering descent to try and lose a little bit of altitude, trying to do a power off approach, and then realise that I'm going to land a little bit too soon, so I add power to do a hover taxi up to the exit point that I'm looking for. So that's our hovering descent. It basically involves pulling the stick back so that the airspeed and the ground speed decrease and your rate of descent increases, so you lose altitude without crossing the ground. So I can see at this point that I'm going to land short from where I want to be. So I'm just waiting for the appropriate point to add power and begin the hover taxi. It's a judgment call, don't add too much, otherwise you go up again. That's coming in now. And we're staying just a few feet above the ground. Much more efficient crossing the ground like this than it is to land early and then taxi slowly. That'll do, power's coming off. And we touch down.
Don't go on the grass wherever you do, it's bottomless.
Okay, thanks John.